What is going on? Woodward Bets back in the house right here on the Woodward Sports Network. Beer and Scott back at it Wednesday night. That always means one thing, our first look at the NFL upcoming. But let me get to my boy Scott. Scott, how we doing? Kind of a slow night last night, and let's just get it out of the way right now. Best bets were not great last night. Now, they were all very, very close, but it's a win or a loss. So, you know, the total in Boston, LA, there's our guys stinking it up. 219.5. I gave you the over on that one. It hits 219. I'll give you Dallas plus 2.5. They lose by 3. Scott gave you Tennessee. They go to overtime. So, you know, they were close at least. But again, 0-4 is still 0-4. There's no moral victories here. So we are not going to hide from those. We're going to bounce back. We got some best bets for you coming up at the end of the show. But Scott, excited to talk some NFL. I see you got your Red Wings wheel on today. The whiteboard is talking some NFL. How we doing, my man?
Doing good. Yeah, the 0-for-4 bets last night. I mean, that was, it hurts sometimes. But, that's sports betting. Even the best sports bettors in the world are just barely below 60%. So, hey, we're the only team. I mean, the only team in this town that gets the moral victories around here is the Lions. We don't get any of those moral victories when there's cash on the line.
Speaking of Lions victories, Jared Goff, NFC Player of the Week. I mean, 296, 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's decent numbers, but I mean, the NFC must have really shit the bed, pardon my French here, for Jared Goff to be the NFC Player of the Week here, Scott. Any thoughts on that locally? Hey, you're a Goff fan, congratulations, but this seems a bit much. I guess there was nobody else that put up as good of numbers as Jared Goff this week.
I mean, we know what it is. Come on, Chris. Those voters over at the NFL saw the Goff girlfriend video too. I mean, so that just did it for him. I mean, it made him famous. His girlfriend's more famous than him, but I mean, he did get his first victory here. I mean, they probably made him Offensive Player of the Week, probably thinking if that dude can win with that guy calling plays, he should be Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, another victory here for the Lions. So I was shocked by this one. I mean, I'm great for him. I'm not hating on Jared Goff at all. It just, when I saw this, it was a little surprising. If you'd have thrown for 404, okay, then we're talking some NFC Player of the Week. But maybe there just wasn't a lot of competition. The first win, you're right. The video has garnered a lot of extra attention on him and his girl. So great for Jared Goff here. Before today, Scott, yes, we're going to talk some NFL. We'll briefly touch on the NBA, a lot of injuries, a lot of rest situations. So we'll go over that real quick. We'll end with best bets. We got some KMAs coming up, Scott's favorite segment. So I'm sure he's got some stuff to sound off about. And on Friday, our Beers with Beer segment will be making a return. We're 1 for 1. Scott enjoyed his M43. So if you missed that, go check out last Friday's show. We're going to spotlight local breweries, local beers here in the greater Metro Detroit area. Scott's generally a Modelo drinker, so we're going to try to expand his horizons, and M43 was a hit. So if you guys have any beers, any breweries that you want to see spotlighted on this video, please don't hesitate to reach out at Woodward Bets on Twitter. Make sure you are following us over there. If you're catching the show today on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're joining us on Twitch, we just started over there yesterday. Welcome aboard. Make sure you're hitting that Twitter account, again, at Woodward Bets. So, Scott, what else we got going on here in the sports world today before we kind of get into the meat of the show, the NFL? What else we got going on?
Well, we're behind the scenes for all the people here for Woodward Bets, all our listeners. We're contemplating working on a bowl pool for everybody. We're just trying to figure it out how we can do this. I'm sure we're going to have a show where we talk about all the bowl games, but yeah, we're thinking about putting something out for all you guys, maybe get some prizes out there to who will be the bowl pool champion of the Woodward Bets show. So we're trying to figure out how the best to do this and get it all situated, but look forward to this. Keep your ear to the ground to that. We'll have more for that to come up, but yeah, Beer, I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, I think I had the Beer Man in one of my bowl pools. And I think you won, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, watch out for the Beer Man. But those are always fun, getting in there and the thing is though, like if we pick it ahead of time, we pick it against the spread, and then you get these guys, these seniors who don't want to play in the bowl game, risking injury. It already sounds like Pickett may not play for Pittsburgh against the Sparties, but yeah, we're going to get something going. That's always a lot of fun during bowl season, that's for sure.
Well, that's part of the research is who's going to miss the game, who's going to take a hit. We talk about getting out ahead of these lines. I mean, that's the perfect exercise to do that in, is looking ahead at some of these college football lines that we have weeks until the games kick off. So excited for that. Excited to get something going for the listeners of the show. So stay tuned on more details for that. Scott, I also know there was an NHL goal that you found pretty funny last night. So tell the people what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I mean I like watching hockey. I was actually at the local pub here by my house having a few Modelo's with the girlfriend. We were hanging out, and I look up and I see this goal scored. It was reminiscent of Mike Legg. Look at this, alley-oop, whoop, and then he boop whaps it in. I mean,
wow,
that's just not something you see every day. I mean, that is incredible. Look at that.
That's pretty impressive.
You're right. The hand-eye coordination is amazing. I mean, the goalie couldn't even have seen that coming. I mean, that is one sweet goal. I mean, you just don't see stuff like that too often. So kudos to those guys. And actually, Chris, it's a perfect segue into my next situation here that I was excited to bet this morning. And we talked about it pre-show. So that kid there is in the mix there for Rookie of the Year with Lucas Raymond. So actually, today, as I told you, I bet on Lucas Raymond. We're going to go for the Detroit Rookie of the Year parlay. I got Cade Cunningham over at FanDuel. Cade Cunningham plus 250. Lucas Raymond is plus 200. You parlay them together for $100, both to win Rookie of the Year. You win $950. So you get $1,050 back for your $100. But yeah, Chris, I like those odds. I think both of them have a really good shot at winning. Like you mentioned, Cade Cunningham, he is the main guy, the main part of the offense. He's taken over for Jeremiah Grant. So I definitely like the position he's in. And then Lucas Raymond just keeps doing it week game in and game out. So I really like the both guys to win Rookie of the Year. So I parlayed them together and going to have some fun watching my two teams here. So I think that's a pretty fun bet.
Yeah, I like those kind of bets because you get some sweat equity out of it. I mean, you're going to get to enjoy watching these guys that much more now over the next couple weeks and months of the season. And that bet's going to keep looking better and better, hopefully, for you as we close towards the end of those seasons. But in Cunningham's case, some of the competition has been out. I mean, Jalen Green not playing with Houston. I know we talked about this when we talked about this initial bet, but he's been out. Evan Mobley has dealt with some injuries. So it's really Cunningham and Scotty Barnes right now, who maybe Barnes probably the front runner. He's playing some good basketball up there with Toronto, but Cunningham certainly starting to pick up his game, his all-around game. He's got some props I really like tonight, so we'll talk about that when we talk some NBA. But, Scott, let's get our KMA here on our Wednesday show. We always pull these out, so if you guys are out there, anything making you mad in the sports world, pissing you off that you want to sound off about, let us be that sounding board for you here at Woodward Bets. But Scott's always got a few things. He's an old crabby man, so he's got a few things chapping his ass. So let's see what's going on here, Scott. KMAs for this week. What do you got?
The first KMA I have is for the MLB. I mean, the lockout. I mean, come on. We got to have a little bit of news. We had some fun with some signings with the Tigers. I know it really doesn't affect anything on the field here, but come on. These lockouts are absolutely ridiculous. There's enough money to go around. They all need to figure that out. So, us common folk have a hard time trying to understand when these guys are saying they're not making money, but yet they're, they're piling it up. All in their bank accounts. But yeah, got a little problem with that. So they can KMA. And another one though, Chris, is all this Heisman talk. We got to give it up. I mean, the Michigan guy's not winning. Walker's not winning. We already know who's winning. I mean, to me, it's just something that doesn't matter. I don't think it should be really that relevant. It's just, who wants to go to New York anyway in the winter? It's cold. Now, if these boys were going to Miami or Hawaii or something, I feel bad for the kids. I mean, that's a great place to go. But yeah, that there is that just seems like it's wasted energy, wasted talk. It doesn't really matter at all. So we just need to let that one go here. I know it's been a big talk in the town here for the last few days, but it's pointless.
Yeah, you're going to keep hearing about that one, and you can make a case for Kenneth Walker. Obviously, I think we both made a case why he shouldn't be there, and I think both sides have a pretty valid argument here. So it is what it is. We can argue about it, we can debate it. He's not going to be there. Is it right? Is it wrong? It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. He's not there. So let's focus on who is there. It's no KMAs for me. Our bets for last night can certainly KMA. That's for sure. So, Scott, let's quickly go over there. Yeah, exactly. And it would be a stinky KMA looking back at those bets. So let's get into the NBA here real quick. Now, 13 games on the docket. Lots of injuries to deal with. So I'm going to rattle through some of these injuries here. We're not going to spend a ton of time on the NBA because there's going to be more injuries to come, more news to come. So we'll just give you the things we know as of right now. We'll start with some of the big name injuries. Chicago will be without DeMar DeRozan tonight. Charlotte going to be thin at the guard position. No LaMelo Ball, no Terry Rozier. Miami, once again, will be thin without Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Minnesota, no D'Angelo Russell tonight. We'll see if Karl Anthony Towns is able to give it a go. He's dealing with an injury as well. Portland going to be without their two studs, CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, to look for Dennis Smith Jr. To once again get some good run there. Philadelphia, we'll see if Tyrese Maxey back in that lineup. Jaylen Brown, another guy we're kind of waiting on news for. Kevin Porter Jr. will be out for Houston. And Luka Doncic, questionable tonight for Dallas, coming off a back-to-back. We also have the Brooklyn Nets on a back-to-back in Houston. So keep an eye out on guys like Kevin Durant, James Harden to potentially rest here tonight. My guess, Kevin Durant probably sits out tonight. James Harden gets a nice revenge game against the Houston Rockets. He's another guy. There's some props that I want to attack here tonight. But, Scott, a lot of big name studs out tonight here in the NBA. And, again, likely more news to come here even after we go off the air.
Yeah, that's for sure. NBA, as we always say, man, it's either you love NBA or you hate it, because you really got to pay attention. You got to be engaged, especially when it gets closer to game time. And then, as you know, you got to be able to be willing to pivot too at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You may hear some other guys that are out, but as you mentioned, all those guys with the injuries, I think the Harden one is interesting for sure. Obviously, going back to Houston, I don't think he really had too much fun except in the strip joints in Houston. So I think that one there is some team that he's going to want to get a little bit of revenge. You look at the usage and everything with Harden without Durant. I mean, it does get a nice little bump. But you mentioned Charlotte. I mean, the other night they only had 8 guys that ended up playing, even though they did go to overtime, so those minutes are skewed a little bit. But I mean, these guys are putting up quite a bit of points here, especially Oubre and some of these other PJ Washington and Cody Martin. These guys are getting a little bit more run. FanDuel did bump up their price a little bit. Cody Martin went up, $3,900 up to $5K. Oubre went up 1,000 from 58 to 68. But, I mean, Oubre the other night, Chris, put up, I want to say, a 60 spot. And that night when Charlotte only had those 8 players, I mean, I scored 408 points or something like that and only came in the top. I didn't barely scrape the top 10, which is crazy. I mean, you score 400 points. I think last night 270 was a good score. So, yeah, just crazy times in the NBA, but lots of injuries. I mean, whatever we're saying now could change drastically in the next 45 minutes. So just make sure you look for that value and try to find those value guys and build you a nice stars and scrubs lineup. That's generally the way I like to do it.
Yeah, and you highlight a lot of the value plays. Portland, again, going to be without McCollum and Lillard, so Dennis Smith Jr., Norman Powell, obviously guys you can look at. You mentioned Cody Martin there with Charlotte. Chicago going to be kind of thin without DeMar DeRozan. So Ayo Dosunmu, I hope I'm saying that right, but he looks like one of the premier value plays. Precious Achiuwa, pretty cheap there for Toronto. Obviously, Miami, a spot we can look to with no Butler. And Bam Adebayo. More expensive options there. Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, guys like that. Dwayne Dedmon, certainly in play. James Johnson getting more run with Brooklyn. If Durant does sit, he could see a bump. So, and Cade Cunningham is a guy I want to continue to go to here, Scott. He's just playing at an incredible level. So rooting for your bets, but he's a guy I'm targeting tonight in DFS as well. So we'll come back at the end of the show, wrap things up with some best bets. I'm sure we'll be touching on the NBA. So if you're waiting on that, stay with us. We're going to talk some NFL here, and we'll come back to it at the end of the show. But as we always do on Wednesday, Scott, let's take a look at waivers ran last night in a lot of season-long leagues. So we want to see who are the most acquired players here in Week 14. No surprise, KJ Osborne, a guy that we spoke about yesterday, headlining the list. Adam Thielen listed doubtful for that Thursday night game. So Osborne going to get some run. A local kid, so we're cheering him on for sure. Russell Gage coming off that big game was a popular ad. Amon-Ra St. Brown scoring that game-winning touchdown and starting to get more involved in that offense. Maybe he's starting to finally elevate to that wide receiver one role for the Lions. I don't know how valuable that role is, but he was added in a lot of leagues. Sony Michel looks like he may be, Darrell Henderson, we'll see if he was able to return, but Sean McVay had some good things to say about Sony Michel. So this may be more of a split backfield. So he's a great ad if he was out there this week. Tyler Conklin, tight end from Minnesota. JaMycal Hasty, a guy I've added in some leagues, Scott, just taking a shot at that San Francisco backfield. Taysom Hill, sounds like he should be able to give it a go once again here in Week 14. Great matchup with the Jets. Samaje Perine on some of this Joe Mixon news was added. Matt Prater to help out a kicker. And Julio Jones activated off the COVID list if he was out on a waiver wire. Obviously, a great ad there. So pretty robust list and covering all the different positions here, Scott. Hasty, a guy I certainly want to take a shot on. If it doesn't work, hey, you toss him back. You look for the next running back opportunity. Sony Michel, another one. He's probably owned in most of your guys' leagues out there, but he's another one that if you can get him for the stretch run, I think makes for a great ad with that potent Rams offense.
Yeah, I mean, I like these two Minnesota guys on here, Osborne and Conklin. I just think with Thielen being out, Jefferson's obviously should garner double coverage. So I do like Osborne here. I think he's going to be a guy that's targets are going to definitely go up. But P. Ryan's pretty scary, Chris. I got Mixon, and I need my man to get out there this week. So definitely a little concerned about him. So I got to grab P. Ryan just in case. But I like your Hasty call. I mean, we obviously know San Fran's going to rely on those running backs. And, when he came in, he gets in there. He seems to do pretty well. I like him out of the backfield catching passes. So I don't mind that at all, especially if you're in a PPR league.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a muddied injury situation. Elijah Mitchell in the concussion protocol, Jeff Wilson Jr., we're not sure if he's going to be able to give it a go. We know Trey Sermon was placed on IR, so it could be a last man standing situation. Again, taking shots like that, I don't hate it. If it doesn't work, so what? You toss them back and you go grab somebody else. But always a valuable backfield there with the San Francisco 49ers. All right, let's see who was cut this week. Headlined by some injuries we saw last week. Kenyon Drake headlining the list, broken ankle. Sounds like he's done for the year. Corey Davis announced yesterday he will miss the remainder of the season. Logan Thomas, tight end for Washington, just cannot stay healthy. Back on IR for Logan Thomas. Boston Scott with the Philadelphia Eagles. Matt Breida. Buffalo saw him lose a fumble, open the door back up for Zach Moss. So that once again could be a three-headed backfield there. Rashad Bateman of Baltimore, this one a little bit surprising. Hasn't been doing much, but we know a very talented rookie there. Tyrod Taylor looks like he may be done in Houston. Alex Collins has done nothing. And I know because he's been on a ton of my teams, both season-long and dynasty, and just getting nothing in his second shot here. Ty Johnson, again, that crowded Jets backfield, he's kind of getting squeezed out. Antonio Brown, with that 3-game suspension, a lot of people cutting bait on him as well. So no major surprises here. Maybe a little early on Rashad Bateman. Antonio Brown, if you can hold him. I know that it's muddied there. If they're even going to bring him back at all. Even Matt Breida, I think it's a little early to cut. So those are the three that kind of shocked me. The rest make perfect sense this week.
Yeah, I got a question for you. I know you're more of the dynasty guy than I am, and I've been asked a couple times before in past seasons about this time of the year when, you know what, maybe you're in the dynasty league, your team is on, isn't that good, but you feel like you're building something good. Now, is this a time of the year, Chris, maybe that you're looking at some of these guys, like maybe an Antonio Brown that, is not going to really be relevant that much this season, or somebody like that you think would be valuable later on? Do you try to make a trade for a guy that's potentially useless for you this year and maybe throw a guy somebody you could use? Is this a great time of the year to kind of look at situations like that you may be able to build yourself in the future?
Yeah, it's one of the things I love most about dynasty leagues, and it's probably my favorite form of fantasy football. To be honest, outside of DFS, obviously is a ton of fun, but I'm always analyzing my teams. Like, can I make a run here, and if so, what can I go out and acquire? And the basic of it, I spent a lot of time on it, but look at the bottom of the standings. Look at the teams that are already eliminated, and can you grab that piece that can help you now? Can you grab a guy that can put you over the top? And if you're one of those teams on the bottom, who can I trade away? Who has value? So to answer your question, a guy like Antonio Brown, maybe not as much because his dynasty window is kind of closing. We don't know how many years he has left, but say a Derrick Henry is a good example. You go out and you poach him off a team that you give somebody a piece they can use to make a run. You take Derrick Henry back, who is not going to help this person this season. So if there's IR spots, it gets complicated. But to break it down to its basic fundamentals, yes, if I am a contending team, I'm going to be on the search for anybody that's looking to trade, pick up assets, pick up draft picks. I'm going to try to go and grab some of those pieces that make my starting lineup stronger. You always want to add depth, but I want my lineup to be one, Scott, that you look at and say, damn, I'm going to get run over this week. So that's always my goal. If my team is struggling, I want youth. I want draft picks. Who do I have that's an older player, a veteran that could help somebody? So I am always analyzing not only my team, but everybody else is in the league as well. And what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they need? Any kind of trades, you need it to be even. Don't be the guy sending trades that doesn't help the other guy. So that's why I enjoy those kind of leagues, because it's year round as well. Even in the off season, trying to move around in the draft. Do you want to move up? Do you want to move down? Can you grab some of the veterans that people forget about because they're excited about the rookies? So I hope that answers your question, but I just love the involvement in dynasty leagues. So if you guys have ever any questions on those, I play in about 1 million of them, and I'm not. That's not just a number I'm making up. It's almost a full-time job keeping track of some of these rosters. So if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, Brown maybe been a bad example. Like maybe even Calvin Ridley, a guy who's been out for mental health reasons. Maybe he comes back next year. I mean, we obviously seen he's a young kid. We've seen the potential with Ridley. So maybe that's a guy that you could go after. But yeah, Antonio Brown, I mean, yeah, he's been around a little bit. But yeah, I just get asked those questions, hey, would I trade, or would I do this, or, blah, blah, blah. So especially when I'm out and about with a bunch of the boys in the bowling alley or something like that, I get people coming up to me asking me, those different type questions. But yeah, always fun. It's always fun. I'm in a couple dynasty leagues, and yeah, I'm in building mode in one of them. I'm like the Lions here, but we're getting there, Chris. We're getting there.
Yeah. So it's a fun form of fantasy. So no doubt. So there was news earlier. Somehow I overlooked it. Kevin Durant and LaMarcus Aldridge will not play tonight for the Brooklyn Nets. So I was happy to lock in that player prop on James Harden. Unfortunately, it's not going to help you guys out there tonight. I still think there'll be some value on it at an elevated number. So we'll take a look and see what that number is at here. But as suspected, which you could kind of tell, some of the early morning lines, even this afternoon, the lines looked a little fishy. When they look like that, it's usually because they know rest is coming. So you can attack that either way. You still believe in the Nets. You jump on that early, and even without guys like Durant and LaMarcus Aldridge, maybe they still go out and whoop Houston, or you take the Rockets with those points that are pretty low. So always an edge to that, but somehow missed that news somewhere. So we got you up to date there. Scott, let's dive into the meat of the show here with the NFL. We always do this every single Wednesday. Give our initial thoughts on the games, look at some of the spreads, see some of the line movements, and some initial DFS and season-long plays for you. And then we come back on Sunday morning and really talk NFL for an hour with you guys in the chat. Love the interaction in that show. So this is the initial look. Sunday, we tie a bow on everything and give you our best bets in the NFL. So make sure you guys are setting an alarm and getting up with us on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. here on the Woodward Sports Network. But, Scott, let's dive into these games here. We'll focus on the main slate of games. Let's start with Dallas and Washington here. 4.5-point spread here for Dallas, 49 on that total. So Good spot here for Dak Prescott. The Washington hemorrhages points to the quarterback position fantasy-wise. Washington on the other end, we talked about Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick, also no practice today, so could be another spot for Antonio Gibson here. Heineke, McLaurin, a little bit disappointing in that game against the Raiders, but they go out and they get the W. So close spread here, two teams that know each other well. Scott, what do you got here, Dallas and Washington?
Yeah, I actually like this game as far as a DFS standpoint. I mean, you look at, as you mentioned, Washington's terrible against the quarterbacks. I mean, they've given up, 26 passing scores, allowed 280 yards plus to pretty much every quarterback. They've been, obviously Prescott hasn't been that good really bad since he got back from that ankle injury, but he hasn't thrown more than 2 scores since week 6. So I actually think this is a spot here that Dallas is going to want to get Dak Prescott in this passing game right. We know that they've had some injuries and some COVID issues with Lamb and Cooper. They got Gallup back. So I think this offense is starting to get into healthy mode here. I think they're in a good spot here to get some points here against this Redskins team. And I believe if they win the game, Chris, I believe they cinch up the division. So or at least they got a really good stranglehold because they're a couple games ahead. So I think this is a really important game for Dallas. And I don't see a way Washington is going to be able to keep up. I think Dallas is going to probably smash them here, but I do like other pieces from this Washington side. When you look at like a guy like McLaurin, we obviously know McKissick has suffered a concussion. We're not sure if he'll get back in there yet at this point, but if so, I mean, Gibson's a little beat up himself with a little shin injury, so that one's interesting. But I just think Dallas here is in a really good spot to get a stranglehold on that division.
And Dallas been very good. Not only 8-4 record, but 9-3 against the number this year. So I'm with you on this one. Now there's been line movement. We're actually down to Dallas -4 as we're talking now in most places. So that's come down a little bit. Open at 6, so we got 4.5 on the screen. That thing ticks down to 4. I like it that much more at 4, obviously, with Dallas. So I tend to side with you there. The total has dropped as well. Opened around 52. That's down to about 48, even down to 47.5 in a few spots here. So I like Dallas. I think Amari Cooper is pretty cheap out there. CeeDee Lamb has kind of ascended as the wide receiver 1 here. So it's really created a nice price discrepancy on those guys. Zeke, Pollard, I think both are intriguing. It sucks that it's not just one guy. I mean, if Tony Pollard's the starting running back for this team, we're hammering him. But that also helps water down some of the ownership there as well. So mostly Dallas for me. Washington, really tough to trust Gibson in a tough matchup. Dallas been good against the run. I don't mind McLaurin, Heineke here. Ricky Seals-Jones could be a value tight end this week if he's able to return. He was back at practice today, but mostly Dallas for me, and I'm liking Dallas here on the spread as well. Next one, we got Jacksonville and Tennessee. The Titans, big double-digit favorites here, Scott, to nobody's surprise. I mean, Jacksonville goes out to L.A., gets whooped up on by the Rams. It's just the way the season has been going. Tennessee coming off a bye, so they should be rested, ready to go here. What do you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville, I mean, it's just so hard to play anybody on Jacksonville. I mean, I've been interested in Robinson a few times, but, then you hear reports here recently, felt like he got benched for Hyde there for a couple series. So he's not too happy with old Uncle Herbs over there. So, yeah, it's really tough to play some of these Jacksonville players. But Tennessee, I mean, obviously you look at it, as much as they like to run, you got Hilliard over here, Deontay Foreman. I think Hilliard's an interesting one. He ran for 131 yards and a score on 12 carries. So I think that one is a guy that you could maybe look at if you're like we talked yesterday about a season-long pickup if you need some help at running back. But, I mean, Derrick Henry ran for 3 touchdowns, 29 carries, 130 yards in the first meeting with the Jaguars. So I'm going to assume here that they're just going to try to run it down their throat. Jaguars are 17th in giving up points to running backs. So I think this one here is definitely a game where you're going to see Tennessee try to run. And I mean, their spread has gone from 11 to 8.5. 70% of the money is coming in on Tennessee here. So I think that one's pretty interesting. But Tennessee as a team, 7-5 against the spread. Jacksonville is 4-8 against the spread. But yeah, this one here, Chris, for DFS wise, I mean, it's just kind of some thin pickings here. I don't think I really like too much. Maybe might want to throw in one of these Tennessee backs for a value guy. But I mean, with the split backfield, I don't know how big of a upside they have. But yeah, this one here is a DFS game I just might scratch off the list.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that backfield as well. You mentioned Hilliard with his big playability. It was Foreman who saw the majority of the touches there last week. So the matchup, it's good. Jacksonville, they're not terrible. We're not talking Jets level bad against the run, but they're certainly in the bottom 10 of the league in fantasy points allowed. So I want to like these guys. If you're running a ton of lineups, I see you could work them in. Foreman probably more valuable on a FanDuel where you're caught more in touchdowns. With Hilliard, more valuable on DraftKings with that PPR upside. We'll see if Julio Jones is able to get back in the mix here. If not, Nick Westbrook-Akine stands out as an option as a pass catcher. And I'm with you on Jacksonville. It's just tough to we're too excited about anybody here. We just haven't seen anything out of Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault. I want to like James Robinson, but the fumble it cost him some snaps. We saw Carlos Hyde back in the mix. So I agree here. Mostly a stay away. I do like the under here. I do like the Tennessee defense in DFS, and as a season-long pickup, I think they were one of the best teams that you could grab last night or tonight if you're doing some waiver wires. But I'm liking an under here, Scott, seeing 44, 43.5 at most places.
Yeah, the under is definitely interesting, like we said. I'm not really a fan of either one of these two offenses. I mean, without Henry and, these strong receivers they got in Tennessee, it seems too much of a crapshoot. There's just too many better spots to attack this week.
All right, let's talk Seattle traveling to Houston. This one opened up 6.5. I'm seeing mostly 7.5s right now in favor of the road team. Total pretty low here. This is total that's dropped as well from 44.5. Currently sitting at 41.5 in this one. So, Scott, I know you're big on Seattle. You mentioned them yesterday in our first look at these spreads. So has that changed here? Houston, sounds like it's going to be Davis Mills under center for this team. It's just been a disaster for them. So Seattle looked good last week. Maybe that sparked this offense. It's certainly a good matchup here with this Houston defense.
Yeah, I think Houston's coming in at the right time for Russell Wilson and these guys. I mean, they got to get that passing game going. That rushing off part of their offense has just been terrible. I mean, it's awful. I mean, they brought in old dusty Adrian Peterson. It's been so bad, and then Homer, Penny, these guys just Collins. They're not DJ Dell. They're not getting the job done. So I think they may open it up a little bit here against this Houston team. Houston's 17th against the quarterback, 21st against the wide receiver as far as points scored. So, I mean, really the only guys here that I would even be somewhat interested in is the Wilson, Metcalf, and Lockett's. But obviously I'd only pair up one of those guys with Wilson. But I think that one there is a low-owned sneaky spot that they may try to get them right. And, who knows, with Houston, with the Davis Mills out there, you might see some short fields if you get some turnovers. I do like that Seattle defense, so I think they may run a little bit of fits here. Now, the only thing that really got Seattle last week with San Francisco was Kittle. We saw Kittle just have a huge game, and I don't think that Houston has that capability here with this roster they're bringing in, especially if Tyrod Taylor doesn't go. Like we said, I'm not really a fan of Davis Mills. I don't think this tight end's got it. I mean, Cooks just hasn't been Cooks, and this whole Houston offense is just terrible. So I do like the Seahawks a little bit here in a bounce back spot. I think they're going to try to get right. I don't know how much upside they have, but I do think you'd be able to get Russell Wilson pretty low on this week.
Yeah, mostly a stay away here for me. You mentioned some of the numbers with Houston. They're not terrible against quarterbacks. As much as the matchup on paper looks great for the Seattle offense, they're not up there with some of the worst teams. It doesn't mean Russell Wilson can't go out there and have a big game, but I'm more looking at the receivers here. You mentioned Lockett, Metcalf. They never get there together for some reason. So spotlighting one of those, I prefer Tyler Lockett a little bit, but both those guys will remain in my player pool. And Houston, I'm pretty much hands off. Again, it's always the same argument. Brandon Cooks or not, the rest is really tough to get behind. You mentioned the tight ends. No, thank you. The running backs in a great matchup with Seattle, but Who wants to play Rex Burkhead? I mean, that's not a fun button to click. Even in your season-long leagues, you may be down to that point where you have to play him. I certainly understand it, but all in all, it's just an ugly team. So an ugly game. I don't have any strong leans on this one. I want to go over here, but Scott, I can see this being a 9-7 type game. So as of now, I'm probably just staying away from this one here. Let's go to one that should have a lot more fantasy goodness. That's Las Vegas and Kansas City. So updated lines. We're kind of all over the board here. I'm seeing 8.5 at BetMGM. I'm seeing some 9.5, all the way up to 10 on PointsBet. So quite the spread of numbers here on this game. Total mostly 48s out there in the market. So do the Raiders have any chance here? You know, we've seen the Chiefs bounce back, look a little better here. Another matchup of these two teams. Feels like we just saw this game a couple weeks ago. So can Vegas go in here and stay close? Darren Waller, the name we're watching, sounds like he's day-to-day, so a little bit more encouraging than last week. Other injuries, obviously Kenyon Drake we spoke about, so maybe that gives more appeal to a Josh Jacobs as more of a workhorse. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy I like to kind of bounce back, get a little bit more of that rushing split there with the Chiefs. So thoughts here? Pretty entertaining game with the Raiders and the Chiefs.
Yeah, that Week 10 matchup, both teams have gone in just completely different directions here. I mean, the Chiefs have been playing as if they should be Super Bowl contenders, have not lost, been looking pretty impressive. And the Raiders, I mean, with all the issues they have and all the injuries and everything else, they've just struggled mightily, losing Waller, you know, the whole Ruggs situation. Now they've lost Drake. So they've been struggling here. I do think this is a spot here the Chiefs are going to get right, especially with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's in a pretty good spot this week. The Raiders give up to 29 points to running back, so I think that one's a pretty good spot here. And I think this is a really good spot here for Travis Kelce to get right, Chris. We haven't seen that big blow up from Travis Kelce, and I think here he might have an opportunity to get in the end zone a couple times here. He caught 8 passes for 119 yards in Week 10. That was his season high in yardage. But I think they want to get him some touchdowns. He did struggle last week against the Broncos. He only had 3 catches for 27 yards. So I think this is going to be one here that Andy Reid's going to try to get Kelce involved. And I think Kelce's a pretty good spend up this week at tight end.
Yeah, I agree. He hasn't been doing much, so it'll be easy for people to avoid him and just spend that money elsewhere, even on his own team, going to Tyreek Hill against this Vegas team. But both these teams have been terrible against the number, both 5-7 here. But I lean the Chiefs here. I just, the Raiders have been struggling. Obviously getting Waller back would be a big help, but I just see the Chiefs getting some revenge and dominating this game. So Chiefs for me here early in the week, even at that elevated number. It's under 10. I hate taking the Chiefs because they never cover the spread, but I do think they roll in this one against the Raiders. All right, New Orleans and the Jets up next here, Scott. I mentioned Taysom Hill. Sounds like he's going to be under center once again, dealing with that finger injury, but I mean, he's not throwing the ball a whole ton here anyway. He may not even have to against this Jets team. So updated lines, mostly -5s out there, 5.5s at a few places. Total, again, very low here, sitting mostly 42.5 to 43.5. So a little bit of a spread on those totals. So this one, good luck. There's not a ton here. Obviously, we're waiting on Alvin Kamara news on the Jets side. Elijah Moore popped up on the injury report on the Jets side. So he's a guy I like in a good matchup, but we'll see if he's able to give it a go. We mentioned Corey Davis out on the Jets side. Their running backs, there's a ton of guys there. If Kamara's out, maybe Mark Ingram's the play because these Jets are horrible against the run this season, giving up touchdowns to almost everybody they face, Scott, every single week.
Yeah, they are terrible. I mean, they're worse than the Lions, and that's saying a lot. But I think we got to keep in mind. I mean, we saw Taysom Hill. I mean, he's got a bum finger, so you're right. How much passing he's going to do here in this game, especially with the Jets being so bad against the run? I think you're going to get a whole dose of Taysom Hill, Kamara, and Ingram. I think they're just going to pull the Patriots on they did to the Bills, and they're just going to run it 80% of the time here in this game. So, you know, you look at Taysom Hill, I think on DraftKings, he's only like 5,400, which is pretty cheap for a quarterback. I mean, if he rushes and gets you a rushing touchdown, he'll get you the value. So I don't mind him as a cheap quarterback. I don't think you're going to get the 35, 40 pointer out of him, but mid 25, mid 20, I could see getting out of Taysom, especially if he runs them in for you. But yeah, this one here, anybody here on the Jets is just no thank you. I'm not interested in anybody. Maybe Elijah Moore if you really want to go there. But I mean, how much do you really trust Zach Wilson getting the ball to Elijah Moore? I'd feel a lot better if they had a better quarterback back there. But yeah, this one here, New Orleans, they got to get right here. I think getting Kamara back will help them out a little bit. Who would have thought, Chris, losing Jameis would have sent the Saints into a tailspin? But it is what it is, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I like Taysom. I'm a little bit more optimistic than you. I think this finger injury is going to concern people, and that's going to have people, specifically on DraftKings, going back to Cam Newton. These guys are kind of in the same price point. I think it's going to be a debate for a lot of people this week. I prefer Taysom Hill. He's going to get there on the ground. The Jets, as a defense, we know, very vulnerable to not only running backs. The quarterbacks haven't run a ton on them, but still a ground game that you can certainly roll with against this Jets team. And maybe the finger doesn't bother him as much as we're making it out to be. So I think there's a little bit of a panic in the streets. I want to take advantage of that with Hill. I do like Elijah Moore on the other side if he's playing. Any bets you're liking here, Scott? I'm leaning over here, but this is a game early on in the week. I don't see any significant edges to right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Nothing's jumping out at me at this game here. I think there's a couple other spots here, but I'd like to know though, really, if what the news with Kamara is before I start making any kind of decisions here.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go to the aforementioned Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers bringing in the Atlanta Falcons. Both these teams 5-7 this season, looking at 2.5 mostly across the board on this number here. So, Scott, sounds like they're going to go back to Cam Newton. We saw him play very well in his debut. We saw a disaster in his second game against Miami. Now, to be fair, that's a team playing some very good defense right now in the Miami Dolphins, whereas this Atlanta team hasn't played good defense all season long. So where is your comfort level going back to Cam Newton here? We have no Christian McCaffrey hurt once again, so Chuba Hubbard becomes a running back play we can look at for some value. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, if you want to pair Cam Newton. I don't think you have to. And then Atlanta side, same old cast of characters. Cordero Patterson always feels a little bit too expensive. Kyle Pitts feels a bit too expensive and is a letdown seemingly each and every week. And Russell Gage has emerged as a value wide receiver one here for Atlanta. So a lot of pieces here, Scott. Anyone you want to spotlight here in this one?
Yeah, I think Chuba Hubbard's in a good spot here for Carolina, as you mentioned. When last time they played, he had 82 yards and a touchdown. I think he'll get something similar to that here against the Falcons. We do know that Carolina does not mind going to Chuba Hubbard, so it's not like it's an unknown there. So I do like some Chuba, as we mentioned, but hopefully you kept him in your season-long leagues and didn't lose him to somebody else. I know we kind of talked about that a few weeks back, but yeah, this team here, I think really that's the only place I'd go. I'm not a fan of Cam Newton, as you mentioned. He looked awful last week, so I'm not really all enamored with him, especially with McCaffrey on the sidelines. I think that is that's just, I don't know. That's just something that I don't want to do. The Panthers did fire their offensive coordinator, so I think Matt Rule might be calling the plays there. I know they got a temporary guy there, so I don't know if Cam Newton got the offensive coordinator fired or what, but yeah, it looks like that offense over there is in a little disarray. But hey, as we know, the Falcons have just been awful. But Cordell Patterson, though, like I said before, it just seems like every time I turn on or I look over at a screen, a Falcon game, number 84 is running down the sideline with the ball. And it just is week in and week out. He's the only guy seeming to do anything over there. I gave up on Kyle Pitts weeks ago. Not really interested there. Gage is interesting. He had 130 yards and 11 catches last week. So I think you're going to get some people going back to him with some recency bias. But yeah, I think Chuba Hubbard's really the only guy here that I'm interested in.
Yeah, Hubbard was, let's say, productive. I mean, 24 carries, 85 yards in that first game against Atlanta. Now, you gotta mention Cam Newton was not the quarterback in that game. So I worry a little bit. They gave him the role. You're going to be our McCaffrey. Then we saw some other guys kind of worked in. Now you add Cam Newton to the mix here as well. So I'm intrigued by Chuba Hubbard. I don't know how much I'm going to have as we come closer to Sunday. The concerns may outweigh the potential reward with Chuba Hubbard. That being said, Scott, I love Carolina in the spot. It looks like you can get a -2.5 at most places. So at home, I think they have the better defense. Cam Newton is certainly a wild card and a concern. If he plays bad again, Atlanta's going to go in and win this game. But early on in the week, give me the Carolina Panthers here against Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do like Carolina. Atlanta's just been so bad. I think they've lost 68-3 in a couple of their last recent meetings here. They're just not putting up any points on the board. Matt Ryan's looking terrible. But, yeah, I agree with you there, especially Atlanta going on the road. I don't see them staying with Carolina here.
All right, next game we got Cleveland and the Baltimore Ravens. Seeing some pretty significant line movement here. Baltimore opened up -1. It's flipped now. Cleveland -2.5 at most shops out there. Total right around 42 in this one. So one of those ugly AFC North type battles here, Scott. And this game, there's a lot of big names in this game, but this one is hard to get excited about anybody. I mean, Nick Chubb against the Baltimore run D that's not been as stout as they were, a decade ago, but it's still a tougher matchup. Kareem Hunt is back, so you got to worry about them. Jarvis Landry is perennially on the injury list each and every week, so you're worried about that. Baker Mayfield has been garbage this season. You go to the other side, we got Rashad Bateman getting cut in season-long leagues. Lamar Jackson's been somewhat of a disappointment here over the last couple of weeks. Mark Andrews, the running game there in Baltimore. So the reason I bring all this up, Scott, I'm pretty much a fade on this game. I'm intrigued with Lamar Jackson, and I want to make a case for Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt, but there's just better running back plays this week. So mostly a stay away here for me. What do you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's you mentioned all the names here, and one of the big names is the right tackle for their Browns is out, Jack Conklin. So that's really big there for that unit, which is one of the best offensive lines in football. So, I mean, you mentioned getting Hunt and Chubb back. They're going to have to mix those two in. I think this game here could just be a pretty low-scoring, boring game. Baker Mayfield has just been terrible this year. I don't see him really throwing too much. I mean, there's really no upside here for any of these guys. I just am not enamored with it at all. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I really don't think I'm going to go to here either. Devontae Freeman's not been really bad for Baltimore, but again, Cleveland's really tough against the run. They only give up the 8th most points to running backs, so I'm not really sure here if I'm too happy with that either. I mean, Mark Andrews did score a touchdown. He had 4 catches, 65 yards the first time they played. He has been better in road games, but, I mean, you're only getting maybe 50, 60 yards a week out of the guy. So really haven't been a Mark Andrews type year as we saw last year. But, yeah, I think I'm with you here, Chris. I think this game's probably a good game maybe to look at maybe an under in the first half. But, yeah, as far as DFS goes, this one might be another one that I just might scratch right off.
Any bets you like here? Again, that line movement is interesting, moving in the favor of the Cleveland Browns. So you get them under a field goal at home. This total, as most totals seem to be this week, pretty low here. So I have a small lean to Cleveland here, getting them under 3. I think public would be all over Baltimore in the spot, but we've seen the Ravens trip up in the spot, including last week. We thought they would walk in and beat Pittsburgh, and it didn't happen. So Cleveland, not a bad team here. Baltimore, one of those teams that tends to be a public betting team. I have a lean to Cleveland here early in the week.
Yeah, I'm not really sure quite yet where I want to go. The Ravens are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 meetings against the Cleveland. They're also 10-2-1 against their spread in their last 13 meetings in Cleveland. And the under is also 7-3 in their last 10 meetings. So I think, all the trends here are obviously leaning toward the Ravens in this spot, but like I mentioned, I like betting the under sometimes in these first halves, especially with teams that you think are going to run, because there's generally, that second half where these offenses start getting worn down, or defenses start getting worn down by the running games. And generally, they're not trying to play catch up, try to score quick and do things as quickly as they would in the first, in the second half as they would the first half. So a lot of times if I like an under, I generally bet the under in the first half instead. It's generally my preferred bet. So I think that's where I would probably be leaning here in this game. I think you'd probably get it about maybe 21 or so. So I think 21 and a half. So I think that would be a good place for me to start.
Yeah, I like it, no doubt. I mean, we see teams, you have it's like a boxing match. There's the feel out first couple rounds, and then when the scoring hits is at the end when the pressure's on. So I like that call a lot. I think it's an underrated bet. A lot of people don't look at those first halves. I know those have been pretty profitable for you this season, so I like that one. All right, let's move to the afternoon window. We'll start with the Giants and the Chargers. This line on the move as well. With news of Daniel Jones not being available, officially ruled out this week for this game. Mike Glennon, questionable. So we're talking Jake Fromm, maybe the starting quarterback here. And if that name's familiar, University of Georgia quarterback also appeared on the show QB1, I believe, on Netflix. A great quarterback documentary if you haven't watched it, by the way. But Scott, this one's got the Chargers all the way up to 10.5-point favorites here. This total sitting at 44 and a half in most spots. So Chargers feels like a spot they should roll here. Austin Eckler is a little bit banged up, so we're keeping an eye on him. Keenan Allen placed on the COVID list, so we'll see if he's able to return. If they're missing both of those guys, then maybe you're feeling a little worse about the Chargers. But Scott, all Chargers for me here. Jake Fromm, not a good quarterback. I'm just going to go out and say it. So Chargers defense is in play here. If Keenan Allen misses, Mike Williams becomes one of the best mid-range wide receiver plays out there. And Justin Herbert, a guy you can fire up with confidence every single week. Giants side, they're going to try to get you to step into the Saquon Barkley trap here in DFS. He's cheap. It's a good matchup with the Chargers. But if Jake Fromm's running the show here, Scott, I can't trust anything on this New York side.
I agree with you there. I mean, if we had Daniel Jones, I think Barkley would be in a great position here in this game. But, I mean, because we've seen the Chargers really struggle against the run. Barkley is starting to get back to Saquon Barkley we've seen in the past. Obviously, suffering with that ankle injury. I kind of like what I've seen from him recently, but I just can't do it. I can't with Fromm. As you mentioned, they're just going to take away all that passing game, and they're going to stack up the box against Barkley. So I think that one is definitely a risk. But, these Chargers, if Allen's out, I mean, definitely Mike Williams would be a guy I would look to. I mean, we've seen it already before. Herbert, he gets locked in on a guy, he'll just keep throwing it to him. So I do like that. Eckler, I mean, he's the number 2 back in fantasy. 15 touchdowns, 56 catches. He's definitely a guy that you got to look for. But that Keenan Allen news, with him being on the COVID, is definitely interesting here. What are we at? Wednesday. He's got to test negative twice here this week. But, yeah, I think Mike Williams is a guy that if you don't have it, even Jalen Guyton, and we saw him go pretty deep to Guyton here a couple times last week. He fell in the end zone that one time there right before the half. So maybe Guyton fits in that spot for Allen. You might be able to get a cheap receiver. But, yeah, I think the Chargers here at home are in a pretty good spot here against these Giants.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind laying the 10.5 on the Chargers. Even an under could be in play here. If the Chargers get out ahead and just kind of salt the clock away. Giants, I'm hands off. As much as I want to like Saquon Barkley, he's cheap. We know the upside. Just a Jake Fromm-led offense does not get me excited here about the New York Giants. So let's move on to the local team here. Scott, Detroit traveling to Denver with the NFC Player of the Week, Jared Goff. This one opened up at 8. We're sitting at 7.5 now in most places. And we've talked about this. The Lions are very good at covering the number. We can laugh about their record with only one win and a tie, but against the spread, they have been very, very productive. If you've been betting Lions games all season long, you're doing pretty well for yourself here. I think we both preferred the Lions as of yesterday. My stance has not changed here. Should Denver win this game? Sure, and we'll see what happens. The electric rookie there, Javonte Williams, really put on a show on that national stage the other night. But Melvin Gordon expected to be back this week. So, that dings Williams a little bit. Does he remain in a timeshare? Did he do enough last week to be the guy? I want to like him. This matchup is great. Detroit been terrible against running backs, as we mentioned earlier. But as far as a bet goes here, Scott, I love the Lions in this. I hate saying love the Lions. I mean, it's a sentence you don't hear very often in the betting world, but I do. I think with the points, it makes a lot of sense. They've been very competitive in a lot of games, even on the road. When we thought they'd go and get blown out, did they stay competitive? So give me the Lions here. Denver, I still like Javonte Williams. If Melvin Gordon's back, maybe that helps us on the ownership. Coming off that big game, people may hesitate. Maybe he has turned the page and he is the guy here. So I'm hopeful Gordon is back. I think that helps our Javonte Williams case. If Gordon's out, everyone's playing Javonte Williams. If Gordon's back, we're going to get him lower owned than he probably should be.
Yeah, Javonte Williams, that kid just looked really good, as we mentioned earlier in the week here when we were talking about him. I think that kid is going to be really good, especially moving forward. If old Dusty Melvin Gordon get out of his way here for the rest of the season, I think we would see really how good he is. But I mean, the Broncos defense has been really tough. They just held the Chiefs to 16 points in Kansas City. They have not given up a 100-yard rusher yet in Denver. So, I mean, Williams is interesting. I think you can get him fairly cheap. But I just wonder, how many points are the Lions going to be able to score here? I still am believing that the Lions should be able to cover here. I mean, I was just looking at the money coming in. It's weird. 55% of the money is coming in against the spread, and then 57% of the money is actually coming in on the Lions to win outright on the money line. So I thought that was interesting. But, as far as the Lions go, I mean, you mentioned St. Brown. I mean, I think that is more of a dart throw kind of play here. I don't know really how much passing you're going to get out of the Lions here in this spot. Like I mentioned, Denver's pretty tough defensively in Denver. So we'll see what happens there. You just look at all these numbers for Denver as far as giving up fantasy points. They're 5th in quarterback, 6th in running back, 5th in wide receiver. I mean, they're just not giving up the big plays. So, but yeah, Javonte Williams, no Gordon. I think that is going to be probably the chalkiest running back of the week, unless some major injury happens and you get, maybe you get some value open up. But no Melvin Gordon means Javonte Williams probably be up there in the 30-40% range, I would assume, in DFS contests this week.
Yeah, so we need Melvin Gordon to lace him up this week. And again, people will be concerned at that point. They'll still have ownership, no doubt, with the way he looked, but that it will lower it enough where at least it's palatable to go that route. So next game, San Francisco and the Cincinnati Bengals. This one should be fun. We got a Niners minus 1.5 point favorites here. So this one has flipped, likely on the news of not only Joe Mixon, but Joe Burrow also dealing with a hand injury. So we'll keep an eye on both of those guys as we get closer. T. Higgins also a little banged up here. So a lot of question marks on the Cincinnati side. We already mentioned the injuries in that San Francisco backfield. Deebo Samuel missed last week. They're sounding pretty optimistic about him. So this one's got too tough to do a lot here with all of these injuries. Still a lot to go till Sunday. So betting-wise, I'm leaving this one alone. But fantasy-wise, you can make a case for pretty much every guy I just named as viable options this week in DFS and in your season-long leagues.
Yeah, as we mentioned with Hasty and these running backs over in San Francisco, I'm just kind of looked ahead at some of the weather, and they're saying it's supposed to be pretty cold, and we could see some snow and rainy type mix here. Don't know how much it'll affect the game, but just knowing these boys are all from San Francisco, California, they're going to have to come into a cold, rainy situation here in Cincinnati is interesting. But I really hope Mixon gets out there this week. I could use him. He's a big part of what some of my fantasy teams have been doing. So if he's not out there, obviously, as we mentioned already, P. Ryan would be a guy you might want to pick up. But yeah, I think that Burrow news with him being injured is interesting. I mean, Jamar Chase hasn't been Jamar Chase as we saw at the beginning of the year here. So, but I do think this one has the potential to put up some points. But I want to hear a little bit more news about Burrow and the boys here before I make any kind of decision. Now, you look over at Kittle, who had a huge game. Cincinnati is the 4th toughest team against the tight end this year. So you got a strong matchup against the strength there for San Francisco. So I think that could be a little concern. But I'm not really interested in Kittle. I think, as we mentioned earlier, I think Kelsey be the guy that I'd be looking at this week. But no Deebo Samuel. I thought Ayuk would get a little bit more involved in the passing game last week, and it didn't seem to happen. So maybe it's this week. But, I'll be interested to see, though, if it's going to be cold and rainy. I think that might have a significant influence on the game here, especially advantage Bengals.
Yeah, and that line moving concerns me for Joe Mixon. You generally don't see this big of a line movement if they don't already know something. So, if he's out, we mentioned Samaje Perine becomes a value play. You can certainly plug him into your season-long teams, but just a lot of questions with this one. So we'll cover it here. We do a show every single day. If you're not familiar, make sure you're joining us for those shows. We'll keep you updated on all of the injuries in this one. Betting-wise, again, just going to stay away from this one. So last game, Scott, this one should be fun. We want to talk some Buffalo and Tampa Bay here before we wrap up. The NFL talk, Buccaneers sitting minus 3.5 in this game. Buffalo coming off, a tough one against New England. Tampa Bay continues to roll pretty dominant here at home. There are some minus threes out there in the market as well. Total high as you'd expect here at 53.5. So, Scott, we talked a lot of totals, 42, 43, 43, 41. Clearly, this is going to be the game everyone's looking to. It's going to be stacked a million different ways. Brady and Allen both going to be very popular. All the receivers in this game will be popular. Leonard Fournette will be popular. How are you handling this one as kind of the marquee game that everyone is circling here in Week 14?
I mean, you got to look at it from a perspective of, Buffalo just got embarrassed by New England on Monday night. I don't know if you saw some of the press conferences. They were literally asking these Buffalo players if they were embarrassed, if they got embarrassed on Monday night by only losing with only 3 passing attempts. So I think you're going to get a pretty focused Buffalo team. I think you're done kicked the bee's nest here for the Bills. I think they're a pretty good team. Tampa Bay has been getting beat up by some decent quarterbacks here earlier in the season. So I think you might get a pure passing attack here from Buffalo. So I kind of like some Diggs. I do like some Allen here in this game. I also like some Cole Beasley. We've seen Gabe Davis. Beastie had that really good touchdown call there the other night on Monday. He had that parlay with those guys scoring touchdown. Gabe Davis was involved there. So, but Tampa Bay has just been so tough rushing defensively. We already know the Bills don't really have that much of an effective backfield at all. I don't care with Moss, whoever they want to roll out there, it just hasn't been happening for them. So, but in this game here, I think Fournette is going to be pretty high owned. We've obviously seen what these running backs have been doing to Buffalo the last few weeks. Jonathan Taylor had that huge game, and then we just see New England run all the way down their throats. So for me, Chris, I think if you want to get some leverage in this game, I think you're going to see some of the receivers, as you mentioned. I think Fournette would be just a way to go here. The Fournette. And just let it go there. Gronk's another guy. Gronk's actually leading. He's got more points scored, average PPR points than Kelsey does. So that's another guy here that you could look at that we know Tom Brady loves to go to in the red zone. But, yeah, Chris, I think this game here is going to be one of those games that you're going to see. It does have the highest over-under by 5 points. I think the next one is 48 on the slate. But, I think Buffalo, man, they got to just be upset here. I think – if I'm Tampa, I'm a little worried about that Buffalo team rolling in here in a warm environment. They're not playing in this snow globe. I think they're just going to be mad as can be.
Yeah, I think they're going to be mad, no doubt. I think they're going to come out playing well, but Tampa Bay has been playing some great football. They're great at home. I like back in Tampa Bay here. I know that's the public side, but I think it's the right side here this week. Buffalo certainly brings firepower to keep up with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. But this Tampa defense playing well, Fournette playing at a high level. As far as DFS goes, I agree with you. I'm gonna let the ownership kind of dictate where you go here because they're all viable options. I don't think there's a wrong answer in this game. When you have that situation, well, let's see who's going to be chalk. Can we get a nice leverage? Can we get a nice advantage going in a different route? Whether it is the passing game for Tampa that opens up a Fournette play. If Fournette's going to be super chalky, you can look at some of those receivers and vice versa on the Buffalo side. But as far as a bet, sounds like you're leaning Buffalo here. I like Tampa. I don't even hate the over here. I do think we get a shootout in this game, but I really like Tampa, especially if you can get a -3, and there are some still out there in the market.
Yeah, 53% of the money is coming in on the Bucks. This is pretty even as far as against the spread. Money line bets, 67% of them have been coming in on Buffalo. But yeah, I think this one here is going to be an interesting game. I enjoy watching Tom Brady. I mean, I've learned enough now, Chris, as I've been getting older here. You know, growing up with the Larry Birds, the Magic Johnsons, the Michael Jordans. You got to just enjoy these guys at the end of their career because I mean, I hated Larry Bird. I hated Michael Jordan. But now that they're gone, I realize how good they all are. And I think Tom Brady's one of these guys that we're only going to see once in a lifetime. He's really smart. I mean, he's just such a tactician on the field. But I enjoy watching. I'll be looking forward to that game because I actually thought these are the two teams, Chris, I thought maybe make the Super Bowl when the season started. So actually was my call here. So I'll really be looking forward to watching this one on Sunday.
Yeah, no doubt. Sunday Night Football, Chicago, Green Bay. Monday night, the Rams and the Cardinals. We'll talk more about those games as we get closer to Sunday. But, Scott, that'll do it for our NFL analysis. Again, if you want to hear more about the NFL, we talk about it every single day, updating injuries, spreads, totals, trying to find those bets early in the week. And then Sunday, we discuss the slate top to bottom once again. With the latest news, the latest numbers, along with our best bets in the NFL. So make sure, again, set a reminder in the phone, set an alarm. We know it's early, but grab some coffee, get up, and we'll talk some NFL. Even if you missed the show, always available on demand anywhere you get your podcasts, on YouTube, and now on Twitch as well. So make sure you guys are checking that out on Sunday. But Scott, it's Wednesday night, so we can't leave the people without giving them some best bets. 13 games in the NBA. I'm sure that's where we're going to go for the majority of these. I have quite a few bets I like, so we're going to see if you snake any of my bets. I got some backups just in case, but I'm going to allow you to go first. As always, let's bounce back. Yesterday, we were close on a few. That's not good enough. Let's give the people some winners here for tonight. What do we got?
I actually have two, Chris. Both are in the NBA. I'm going to be looking at the Chicago Bulls, giving the Cavaliers 3 points. I think the Cavaliers got too many injuries going on. I just don't like this Cavs team in this spot. And unfortunately, Chris, I'm going to have to go against the home team Pistons here. I'm going to take Washington, giving the Pistons 5. I just think Washington's got a little bit too much here for Cade Cunningham and the boys tonight. So I'm going to bet against my Pistons tonight, and I'm also going to take the Bulls.
All right, you snaked one of mine. So we're in agreement on Washington. That was going to be one of mine. So we both like that one. So that should tell you something. I do like some of these Cade Cunningham props. Again, he's been hitting the over on these almost every single night. Looks like points sitting at 16.5. So that's one you can certainly get on. But so I won't double up on your bets. I'll give you some different ones. I'm going to flip the script, Scott. I know you've been on these New York Knicks overs, or unders. I'm going to go over tonight. The defense has just not been playing as well as we saw last season with Indiana here. So this total looks like 209 at most places. I'm going to go over on this one tonight. We saw RJ Barrett come back to life last night. So even in a back-to-back here, Indiana not playing great defense either. I like the over in that one. Next one, I am going to go with, I got to scroll to my picks here. I lost them here for a minute. I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. A huge spread here tonight in this game, no doubt, 14.5. But we mentioned Portland, no Damian Lillard, no CJ McCollum. I think they're going to get rolled. And the Warriors not been good record-wise. They've been very, very good against the number this season. Not a team that's going to let up at all. So I think they are going to blow out the Portland Trailblazers tonight. And last pick, I'm going to go one more over in the Orlando-Sacramento game. Just no defense at all in this one. I worry a little bit about Orlando being able to keep pace here, but I do think we get a track meet in that game. Looks like, I want to get you guys the right number here. 222.5 is the number, so I'm going to go over on that one. So over 209 in the Knicks and Pacers, over 222.5 on Orlando and Sacramento. And the Golden State Warriors minus 14.5, and we're both on the Washington Wizards minus 5. And Scott, what was your other pick here? So it sounds like we're giving 5 to the people here tonight. What was the last one?
I had the Bulls minus the 3, and I had the Washington minus the 5 against the Pistons. And don't forget about my rookie of the year, the Detroit Homer rookie of the year bet, where we parlayed together Cade Cunningham plus 250 over there on FanDuel, and then also put in Lucas Raymond over there on the Red Wings at plus 200. You bet it for 100, you win 950. I really like that, as you said, get some sweat equity all season long to root for our two talented rookies here in Detroit.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So best bets rebounding here tonight, we hope. But on tomorrow's show, we'll continue with our look at the NFL. We'll talk some Thursday night football, Minnesota and Pittsburgh. No Adam Thielen in that game officially announced out. Dalvin Cook, we'll keep an eye on that. So we'll update everything on that in the betting markets and your DFS contest as well. Again, update the injury reports. And if you have any suggestions, Beers with Beer on Friday, what's your favorite beer? What's your favorite Michigan brewery? We want to keep it local here. We may expand the horizons eventually, but we want to cover all the local breweries and beers. If you have any suggestions for what you want to see Scott give a try on Friday, let us know. If not, I will pick something out here locally. So put that on the calendar as well. So that will wrap us up for today's show. A little longer one, but always a fun one on Wednesday, taking a look at the NFL. So, Scott, final thoughts for the people here on Wednesday night. What do you got, buddy?
Oh, just kind of looking forward to all these games this weekend. It's supposed to be nice weather. So going to be able to at least enjoy a little bit of the weather here before it gets to be cold here, as we've already kind of experienced a little bit. So, yeah, hopefully we get some lunch money, get back on track with these bets tonight. We don't need to see that stinky thing, our little video here that our boy Spencer plays every once in a while when we lose. So we got to get back on track. There it is, right on cue. So no more stinky man. We got to get back on track and get the people some winners tonight.
The good news, I've only seen him, I believe, twice on our shows. So we do shows 7 days a week. So, based on that alone, the record's looking pretty good. We're going to tally everything up eventually. Both of us pretty busy getting this thing going here with Woodward Bets, but can't do it without you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys ever have any suggestions, things you want to see us talk about, different segments, please feel free to reach out to either of us on Twitter. Our handle's right there on the screen, or, of course, at Woodward Bets. Make sure you're following us there and following the network at Woodward Sports. For Scott, for our boy Spencer behind the glass, for Mr. Stinky Man stinking up the bathroom, I am Beer. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your bets tonight, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.